So before I begin the video, I would just like to say this is going to be a completely different video than what I usually do. I just opened the page and the first thing I see is a half-eaten head. I am going to be talking about some very dark things and not in the usual way I do. He began to sexually assault her corpse and then partake in cannibalization of her body. I am not going to be comedic this video as it deals with things that are not comedic at all. His viewpoint on how everything happened. I'm also going to be talking about some very dark subject matter such as rape, murder, and necrophilia. So if you would not like to watch this video, that is totally fine. Please check out some of my other videos as they are more comedic and dealing with different things, and hopefully I do get to see you again soon if you do not want to stick around. Please be warned, viewer discretion is advised. Also, it may look like I'm in a completely different area, and that's because I am. I am currently visiting my family in America, and my setup is incredibly scuffed. This is the 5th time I've recorded this because it just keeps screwing up, and I know the lighting is also not all that great, but please just bear with me. I'm just gonna come out with it and say, I have this. This may just look like, you know, your ordinary manga. It's got about the same length. It has a silly little name called Sagawa on it. It has a little, you know, quirky guy on it. But the name Sagawa is actually after a real person. Not just any real person. It is after a man who is a murderer slash cannibal slash necrophiliac. This is a manga depicting the crimes that he has done, his life, and really just every disgusting and awful thought he's thought during the making of this. This is a fairly rare manga. You can get it online if you search hard enough. It's not cheap. They didn't release many copies of it due to, of course, what it has in it. He draws very crude, disgusting drawings that I will be showing you some of after I describe some of his most disgusting crimes that he has done. But first, let me give a little bit of backstory. Unless you listen to Trash Taste, you probably don't know that I really love true crime. Since I was a kid, I've been very into morbid subject matter. Me and my dad both have that in common. We would always watch true crime TV shows. We'd look into serial killers, like walks in different cities. We'd look into like local crimes and stuff like that. And especially when it became to like morbid subject matter, I do mean like murder. I do not know why, we are just very fascinated into it. And obviously growing up during the true crime boom, I fell even deeper into this rabbit hole. So much so that I don't go a day without listening to at least one true crime case. Be it when I'm showering, cooking, just doing menial activities, I always have a true crime YouTube video or podcast on in the background, which has led me down another rabbit hole, which is Japanese murders. Now, looking into Japanese murders are something that fascinates me, I would say almost the most than any other country, because although Japan is a very safe country, it also has very disturbing and very unique murders. Like, incredibly different than any other country's type of murders. It always has some weird twist or some just odd psychological fixation that just really draws me in and gets me interested. So it's being fascinated in Japanese murder cases that led me into finding manga that was based off of real cases, and led me to finding one very disturbing manga made by an awful human being named Issei Sagawa. Now, I'm going to talk about Issei Sagawa's crimes first, but I'm not going to be getting into every little which detail because I'm not a true crime channel. I'm not trying to seem like I am. But just to provide some backstory, here is the case, very synopsis abbreviated case of Issei Sagawa. If you would like to look more into his case, there are 1,000,010 videos on him on YouTube. In 1981, a man named Issei Sagawa was studying in Paris. He came from a very wealthy and influential Japanese family and battled with cannibalistic thoughts his entire life. While in Paris, he became obsessed with his fellow classmate, Renee, and although barely knowing her, asked her to come to his apartment and study. And unfortunately, she readily took him up on that offer. While she was reading a poem out loud with her back facing Sagawa, he took a gun and shot her point blank. She died instantly. Everything that happened after that it's very disgusting and disturbing. He began to sexually assault her corpse and then partake in cannibalization of her body. And that's really f***ed up, right? But we didn't even get to one of the most f***ed up part yet. After taking his time enjoying himself with her body, Sagawa knew he had to get rid of it. He tried throwing her body away in a lake in a park full of people, and was thus captured and arrested and thrown into French jail. And in 2 years, his trial finally came. The French judge declared him legally insane and requested he be deported back to Japan, where he would live his natural life inside of a mental institution. However, when he arrived back in Japan, he was immediately let go, allowed to live his life as a free man. Why? Due to him being charged as mentally insane in France, all of the charges were dropped and the case files were locked away, unable to be given to the Japanese authorities. With little to no explanation as to why Sagawa should be held in a mental institution, he was let go. He was allowed to live his life free without any consequence for his crimes. Everyone in Japan became fascinated with Sagawa, knowing that he escaped murder, sexual assault, as well as neurophilia. And he was clearly off the high of escaping justice, so much so that he decided to bank on his story. He would go on television shows talking about what he did. He would appear in porn, and he even wrote books in excruciating detail about the murder that he committed. He even wrote a manga. This manga. And I could say right now, I've had the misfortune of reading this book and enduring it. Honestly, this is probably, I don't think my morbid curiosity has ever led me down a more disgusting path. And I'm not exaggerating. So of course, I am not the most fluent in reading Japanese or speaking really. I just, so I didn't understand, of course, a lot of the very dark kanji. So I paid somebody to translate it so I could fully understand everything that he was saying in the book, and kind of regret it. So in the manga, it kind of goes from his POV. It's really immerses you in a very disturbing and just disgusting way. His viewpoint on how everything happened, his thoughts on leading up to him killing her, as well as his life after that, and worse, he talked about everything he did to her body, every scent he smelled, every texture he felt, every disgusting brief or prolonged thought throughout any sort of disgusting act he did, which he does a lot. There was even one part in this manga that really made me gag, and that was how descriptive he was in eating a certain woman's part on the lower end, and how he dissembled it and enjoyed what part of it. Obviously, I can't go into details, but it is truly disgusting. Of course, everything was really disgusting, but imagining what he's saying, the texture and everything, you get what I mean. It's just, all of it is disgusting, but that really, for some reason, truly stuck with me. But it's also a deep look into the mind of an incredibly deranged and sick man in a way I have never encountered in my life. So allow me to show you some of these drawings that he has done. Of course, I can't show you a lot of it because a lot of it is actually either real life pictures of the crime, or it is disgusting drawings that he's done of what he did to her body, or him just doing weird fetish stuff. Especially the last 30 or so pages, because they are just random drawings with nonsensical purpose. Now, I'm going to show you a rather disturbing page to start. This is a page depicting of when he first is about to eat a piece of his victim's body, and just sort of the joy and excitement he feels. It says in the next few pages, after he eats it, it is delicious, like he would want a shabu shabu of the woman's body. After that, it shows him cutting off more pieces and enjoying them, saying more disgusting thoughts about how he thinks it's delicious, how this is what he's waited for. After quite a number of more distressing pages, we get to the part where he, gets arrested, of course. This is him essentially going into jail and his life after he is arrested, and we go into a part where he is essentially just saying, this is like a piece of the newspaper where he got caught and talking about it, and this is him, his jail arc, where he starts thinking about what his life was and how genuinely he wishes he could eat more women. Kind of his life in prison up until he gets released. It's hard to read just for the sheer fact that he's just like, he's having the goddamn time of his life. He draws like his thoughts and essentially like how he like wants a sukiyaki of women. And once we get to the end of his prison chapter, we get to a page of him depicting the victim Renee and just writing at the side Owari, which means the end, the end of that saga. The fact that he ended that portion with a picture of her with a halo is fucking monster, really. And literally as the pages goes on, it's just his life after this, how he decided to start writing manga, starring in porn, how he keeps showing up in like, in newspapers regarding like his crimes and how he's profiting off of it. This exists for a reason, because he wanted to make money. And he goes on to kind of say about what his life is. I really can't show many pages of that. Let me see, actually. Yeah, and it's just like the people he's met, the life he's lived, a very crude drawing, kind of just reminds you of something you draw in like high school or, just... And then for some reason, instead of keep drawing, he decided to just write like a novel, essentially, of just his thoughts of like what his life was like. It's very, very long. In these pages right here, it does kind of depict that he had a really hard time finding a normal paying job because all the other companies that would hire him would immediately fire him after knowing what he did, and all of the employees would say like they would quit right away if they hired him. The last few pages are just like random drawings he drew, just kind of depicting like, like questioning things like, why was I born? It's like just like some rather more disgusting thoughts here. I think this is just probably one of the only pages where it's not him jacking off or eating girls. But throughout the manga, he's just constantly talking about how he is thinking about killing and eating women, or how much he misses it, essentially the stardom that came with it. Or it's just more fetish shit of him kind of imagining various things that he wishes he could do more of, like stuff with their body parts, for example. Yeah, I got it because I was just as curious as you are, and it is up and it is disgusting, especially right when like even just now I just opened the page and the first thing I see is a half-eaten head of his victim. It's just like the callousness is just, there's no words. I'm trying to show one image where he's not being disgusting, but honestly, he always is, and it's very telling throughout this thing. He's either talking about how good it felt to murder, how he wants to do it again. More than anything else I've read in this book, be it, yes, his thoughts while he was murdering her, how his POV of how he escaped everything, and how he managed to live a rather luxurious life off of the profit of his murder. That's what bothers me the most. I guess that's really the point of process, and I can just say I own a fairly rare manga created by a murderer, and I'm not all that happy about it. Of course, my final thoughts on it is that, I think I've been pretty open about everything I've thought throughout the whole thing anyway. It did cure my morbid curiosity, but it has scarred me. This is not something I'm going to go back and reread. I do not recommend it. I really, really, really do not recommend it for the faint of heart. I am a pretty hard person to shake in terms of content. This is probably the most disgusting thing I've ever read. I don't really know what more to say. I'm going to leave it at that. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Please let me know if you guys sort of like this kind of content. The only reason I did do this video is because I do talk about manga content. I do enjoy true crime, so, and I had, of course this, so I thought it would be an interesting video. I still do think it is, but, it's up to you. It's up to everybody, really, isn't it? Either way, thank you guys again, and ta-da! Bye!